welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
This week's broadcast is entitled Listening to Mother Earth and Becoming Her Boots on the Ground. It is a rebroadcast of a 5-woman panel presented at the virtual 2021 Parliament of World Religions. It is my core belief that many, many of us are hearing Mother Earth's cries for help, her calls of distress, as humanity continues to desecrate her. This panel grew out of the belief that our stories are our greatest medicine. Together with psychologist Pat Fero as a facilitator, Clare Dubois, Shannon Thompson, Linda Bender, and I share our journey of communication with Gaia. It is our sincere hope that our narratives will inspire you to listen deeply to your heart's calling and join us in this movement to save the future of Mother Earth and all her children.
The title of our panel today is Listening to Mother Earth and Becoming Her Boots on the Ground. All of the 5 of us women have developed a capacity for engaging with Mother Earth in a reciprocal communication. We are also each passionate about taking action on her behalf. Our hope is that our thoughts and experiences might inspire you to find your unique piece in this heart-based movement of reversing the trajectory of destruction that is devastating to us all. I'll share a very brief snapshot of who we are, and then we will share our personal experiences and conclude with a spontaneous conversation inspired by our love for Mother Earth. Rose Tenaglia Dunn is a mother who cares passionately about the world we are leaving for our children and grandchildren. Rose hosts the bi-weekly podcast Earth Feels, where she explores the idea that climate change is happening for us as much as it is happening to us. Linda Bender holds a doctorate degree in veterinary medicine and is a gifted healer, intuitive, and spiritual teacher. She is an internationally known animal advocate, speaker, and author of the award-winning Amazon bestseller, Animal Wisdom, Learning from the Spiritual Lives of Animals. Her work has been endorsed by Dr. Jane Goodall, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, Deepak Chopra, and many more. Shannon Thompson is the founder, birth mama, visionary keeper, and wild card of Shakti Rising, a woman-led, woman-centered social change organization that has been transforming the lives of women, girls, and the larger community for over 21 years. Shakti Rising cultivates the health, financial resiliency, and leadership of women and girls through a unique 7-prism, holistic and sustainable and trauma-informed. Shakti Rising's work empowers girls to utilize their transformation as a catalyst in their families, workplace, and communities. Clare Dubois is the founder of Tree Sisters, a global women's movement supporting humanity's evolution into a restorer species. She is an earth-loving social entrepreneur and inspirational speaker, known for her direct catalytic energy, her whole systems approach to behavioral change and her unending loyalty and love for the natural world. In her own life, her aim is to reclaim balance, astonish herself, and be a walking permission for those who are fed up with being held back and just want to have a go. My name is Patricia Fero. My passion is being a catalyst for the role of the collective feminine in planetary awakening. In service of this purpose, I have written 6 books, which include What Happens When Women Wake Up, Sacred Marching Orders, Igniting the Solar Feminine at the Dawn of a New Age, which was generously endorsed by Marianne Williamson, who wrote, Women owning our power and using it collaboratively and strategically is what our planet desperately needs. My soon-to-be released book, What Happens When Women Converge, subtitled How Reverent Engagement Unearths the Potency of the Collective Feminine, will be an upcoming panel at the Parliament. Now, let's use our time as well as we possibly can. Rose, will you start with our first question, which is, describe your most profound experience of receiving a message from Mother Earth and what led to it?
For me, I had a very direct message from Mother. I was watching television one evening, David Attenborough's Our Planet. It was back in May of 2019, and I literally heard a voice say, ask Christine, who is my cohort now, if she will do a podcast. It was a very tactile experience. I was sitting on my couch. I literally looked up at the ceiling and said, but I don't know what a podcast is. And the voice came again, ask Christine if she wants to do a podcast. So I was far enough along on my spiritual journey that I knew enough to listen to that voice. And I picked up my phone and texted Christine. And 15 minutes later, she came back and said, I would love to. I was just saying to my husband, I needed to get back to my climate work. That was in May of 2019. By July of 2019, we launched our podcast. And we have now this week just published our 180th episode. We have 16,000 listeners. And when I tell you, I had no idea what the technology was or any of that kind of stuff. I just paid attention.
Thanks so much, Rose. Linda, would you answer that same question? What was your most profound experience of listening to Mother Earth, and what did that lead to?
Well, I'd like to answer that by saying I came into this world deeply connected and empathic with animals. And there have been so many experiences over the years, but I'd like to share the earliest memory that I have of a deep connection. And that was when I was a very little girl and my father knew what an animal lover I was. And he said, come on, we're going to go to the zoo. Well, it was back in the day, not a very good zoo, but at any rate, he took me by the hand and we were both excited that I would see wild animals. And the first animal I saw as we approached this cage, about 8 foot by 10 foot, and there was this elegant, gorgeous black panther pacing back and forth all by itself. And the closer I got, all the emotions and all the feelings of that elegant, gorgeous creature just flooded into me. And I experienced what that animal was experiencing. And I became so upset. I screamed and I said, no, Daddy, we have to let her out. She needs to be free. She needs to be free. We had to leave. I was hysterical. And what I realized is that not everyone was listening to what I knew to be truth, because it wasn't a thought, it was just my experience. So that's the earliest memory. And that instilled in me, oh my God, I need to do something. I need to help these animals.
Thank you so much, Linda. I think that next is Shannon. Will you describe your most profound experience of listening to Mother Earth and what it led to for you?
Yeah, well, I think first I just want to speak into that for a lot of us, it might be like a lot of stacked up, subtle messages. Like I feel like my entire life has been about learning to be in conversation with this incredible, beautiful blue, green world we live embedded in. Language of the land and plants and species and animals is, I feel like, part of our natural language, but I'm trying to restore that habitat, the wild in me and the wild outside. So what comes to me in this moment that's really alive is that just 2 weeks ago, I actually realized that I've been having a profound experience with the land since I was 18. I didn't know it until someone reflected it back to me, which was this, that starting at age 18, I started having experiences where land that I had never been on, visited, or seen started dreaming me. And it grabbed a hold of me and changed major decisions in my life. The first time that happened is when I dreamed about Santa Cruz and UC Santa Cruz. And at the time I had been accepted to go to UCLA, and I had an entirely different trajectory in my life. And I started dreaming about this physical land, and it literally wouldn't leave me alone until I finally said something to someone. And in a crazy chain of events, my family took me to Santa Cruz, which is very unusual, but I'm not going to get in the backstory. And we got there and I was scared to death because I realized this is the land I'd been dreaming about. And I knew immediately this would change my whole life. Like living in that forest and going to school there would change my whole life, which it did. It changed everything that I did. So that has happened to me many times. I've been really graced by it, but also it's a very serious responsibility because the land dreaming me led to the inquiry, would I stand up for what it was asking me to do? And would I live into the symbolism? Because for me, it hasn't communicated to me, go do this or try to fix this. It has asked me to live into something that the only way I'll know it is by becoming intimate with it. So to really suspend all the instinct, right, to act in a way I understand.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Claire?
Yes.
Many of us have heard some of your stories.
Well, I'll tell you one that you don't know. I mean, as you know, mine are never very subtle. They're always like car crashes and like, walloping into something. But actually, it started for me in my 20s with nightmares, a perpetual nightmare of no more clouds. And I'm a Brit, we do rain. I live in California now where we barely do rain, but I'm a Brit through and through. And I love my country, and I love rain, and I love green grass, and I love beech trees, and I love moss and mud. And my dreams were cloudless, and I was getting a direct communique for months and months and months that there was a very real possibility of no more clouds. I remember back at school when I was 18, looking at the front of newspapers, The Independent, The Guardian, all these things saying, our warming world. I'm 50, 18, we knew fine well where we were going. We've done absolutely sod all about it, frankly, that is of any actual scale. For all the reasons that we know, none of them acceptable. But those dreams horrified me, terrified me, were part of this like gradual drip. There is only one thing that we need to be doing, and that is shifting consciousness around a relationship to the planet. Because if we could shift that fundamental relationship to the planet where it's not something out there, we are it is us. We've got, fire and rivers and rain in our blood. It's like we are because she is, and therefore her intelligence is flooding every part of us in every moment, but we don't know how to listen because we've decided mentally, and we've inherited this preposterous sense of separation, which the majority of people seem to be living in, not understanding our birthright to a deeper sense of belonging. I have a very visceral bodily sense of a world after the Gulf Stream has collapsed. I have a very strong visceral sense in my body of what we are heading towards with our eyes wide open, that the earth has communicated to me as a very real possibility that, those beech trees, that moss, all of that, that'll be gone if we carry on the way that we are. If there are no more clouds, if countries that are used to having rain have no rain, if, the monsoons are already failing in India. It's like, she's been talking to us, she's been yelling, now she's screaming, and how many people are actually listening? So still, that was subtle, but what it gave me was a very real sense that, when these changes happen, they are colossal. That we're talking about a momentum that most of us can't even get our head around because we We don't do joined up thinking when it comes to ecosystems and weather, but we need to, and fast.
Thank you, Claire. My experience as I'm listening is such a visceral response in my heart. It's both a breaking and an opening. Oh, and an opening. My dog, dear. Yeah. Let me.
Animals are speaking.
Yeah.
Dexter agrees.
Okay, well, I guess Dexter will be there because anyway, so hopefully he'll decide to stop. Can you guys hear very well, or should I mute and
It's
do
fine.
Fine.
Dexter is speaking loudly and relentlessly, like we should be listening. I feel like the beginning for me is that I was actually told by a psychic, and I think probably about 2007, that I was going to write a book titled What Happens When Women Wake Up. And I had never heard the phrase divine feminine in my life. It was completely unfamiliar to me. And it would pop into my mind every now and then. And I would think, did I just imagine that? That's crazy, a complete title given to me. And then this is back in the days of Walkman. Most of us remember Walkman. I stuck the cassette in and I pushed the button and it said, What Happens When Women Wake Up? And it was so clear that, yes, I needed to do that. And so for me, even though I do have reciprocal communication with Mother Earth for sure, I think for me, it's really about the collective feminine. My passion is helping to inspire women to realize that it's us. It has to be us. Marianne Williamson said in one of her talks, if it's going to happen, it's going to be the girls that are going to do it. I don't like the word girls that much, but it's us. It has to be us. So somehow that is my piece. I did have one experience that I think I'll share, and that is that I decided to go into the woods, listen to a tree. This was years ago. And what I heard was, look above you at how all the branches are interconnected. And below, the same is true of the roots. And too much attention has been given to Father Sky. It is time for us to give attention to Mother Earth. The connection that we women feel as the collective feminine, I believe, is the momentum, the catalyst for turning this ship around if we can. So for me, I write, I listen, I go in the woods and I listen and I write what I hear, and I write hoping that some of what I write inspires others to take action. Now we're back around our circle, and I think you kind of answered the question, Rose, what action it led to. So I would ask you, what is your own personal version of boots on the ground, and describe the work that you do on behalf of Mother Earth?
My mission, which is kind of what I feel Mother has asked me to step into, is to simply get people to talk about what is happening. And that can be talking about, certainly about what's happening to the climate, what we see as the climate. But what's coming through really loud right now is getting people to talk about what they're experiencing in terms of what they're hearing from her. Because I believe that the five of us, maybe we're hearing it a little bit louder. Maybe we've just had a little bit more experience hearing it and we're trusting it more. But I believe that anyone who's called to listen to this panel has been called to listen to it for a reason. And they're probably hearing her as well. And so it's a matter of getting people to talk about what they're experiencing. Mother Earth, as Claire said, is screaming. She's crying. As an empath, I feel that every single day. I walk outside and have my bare feet on the ground most mornings because I feel the need to really connect with her. She's calling us. She's calling us to be our boots on the ground. So I think talking among ourselves, talking the five of us here, talking among, as crazy as it sounds, as it may sound, I come from a very linear world. So all of this was a little bit like, I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit crazy making. I was like, I'm losing my mind. But the longer I'm in it, the more I know in my heart, in my solar plexus, in my gut, that we are all experiencing this. We just need to learn how to listen. And that's what my podcast is about. Just getting people to listen.
Thanks. And have conversation. Yes. Thanks so much, Rose. Linda, your work, you've been working diligently for decades. Can you describe your work?
I thought that my life work was going to be just between me and the animals and the close connection that we have. And as our journey teaches all of us that life is episodic, this journey is episodic. And I learned that through my work as a veterinarian with wildlife. Boots on the ground for me was for many years helping animals, often victims of the wildlife trafficking trade, which is one of the biggies in the world. You know, you've got the drug trade, the human trafficking trade, and the wildlife trafficking trade. So I learned along the way of that love and care for animals that was either going to break me or I would become stronger. And both happened. One thing I'd like to share is I was on a trip to East Africa and I was getting ready to leave. I was near Kruger Park. And my communications with animals have just been my life, and it's not a big deal and rarely involved words. But I got the clear message that said to me from a group of 50 buffalo that blocked our Jeep from leaving the park. And the message was, do not forget us. Do not forget us. Teach the humans what you know. Well, I was just devastated because I thought, isn't it ever enough? Isn't it enough? Isn't it enough? So we're constantly being asked to grow and move and teach what we know. And so my course of action then became writing my book, teaching people what I know. And basically that was about letting people understand that all life is one. We're all one big soul. The root word for animal is anima, and that means soul. Understanding the oneness of all life and opening hearts became what I did, as well as helping animals. But I learned that I needed to include the humans in my in my list of people. I have been so touched by the beauty of people's hearts, and I try to, particularly those people who are empathic, who are so sensitive, I try to give them strength, courage. I teach what I know, basically. I don't teach what I don't know. I teach what I have personally experienced in my life. And there is no greater time for people who love animals and nature to speak out. And as I say, don't be afraid to make a lot of noise. And that is what I do. And I think my unique gift here, not unique, but something I'm proud of, is that I combine my science mind with my spirit and my heart. And so the people who think, well, caring about animals, loving this, that's not science. Oh, it is very much science, as we're seeing now. So I'm trying my best and urging those to follow their heart and do the same.
Linda, would you be willing to share what you shared with us at Gail's retreat about the buffalo and the storm?
Well, very briefly, sure. If you have a herd of buffalo travel in these immense packs, and they're very close together, very, very close together. And they move almost as one. But when they detect that a storm is coming their way, they do not turn and run from the storm. They face the storm and they walk toward the storm.
Shoulder to shoulder.
Shoulder to shoulder.
And I think about that's on behalf of the collective feminine and the collective buffaloes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Shannon, your work, your boots on the ground. Can you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I've been spending the last 3 decades plus doing what Linda just said about the buffalo but specifically focusing with women and girls across the world, is how do we fortify the courage, the compassion, all the capacity we need to actually walk into the storm. One thing I want to say outright, I don't feel like I'm special. And I know that I am one voice there are so many people out there that don't have access to microphones or conferences that have been doing this work before me and that are going to do this work after me. And I just want to say right now that we wouldn't be here, the five of us, if not for all of those other folks. So I just want to be like real out about this. I'm just one of many.
Absolutely.
One of my mentors said to me when I was 18 years old and I was overwhelmed by all the things like what Claire spoke about and the massive dissonance at looking at how incredible and beautiful and full of possibility and soul and the juiciness of life and how we're destroying the habitat we live on, just cruising along like it's no big deal. And for me, like I couldn't understand how people were not paralyzed at grief at thinking about living in a world that didn't include giraffes or polar bears or forests or like, I just, still, right, don't get that. Well, that curiosity collided with my love of life and my personal soul recovery work and my leadership development and my specialization in trauma and addiction and recovery. So that's what I've spent my whole life doing is I really understand that what we're doing to the earth is what we're doing to women. Same. And if we really, this idea of how we're going to make the change, I also saw so many educated folk talking at length about all the things we needed to do and what was wrong and the warnings and the science and the spirituality and the this and the that. But where was the action? Still to this day, I look at this and there is so much theory and people want to talk all about the proof and the science. But at the end of the day, dude, it's what you do. It's how you live, right? And so that to me became, okay, how am I going to marry the idea of transformation and leadership development and love of the planet and really understanding that we have to work at the roots of these issues. We have now problems that have compounded because solutions have become problems that are now just like, it's a negative feedback loop. And it takes a lot of guts to go, whoa, let's pull the brake and push pause and let's actually face it. To do environmental sustainability means we're going to have to dismantle extractive capitalist models. Oh, cuss word, insert here, right? And hey, even most of us in the wisdotainment industry and selling our books and building our platforms, are you examining the biases underneath all your work, friends? There's a lot for all of us to deconstruct here. And that whole thing about we got to do the work inside to be able to lead the work outside, and we have to do the work outside while we're doing the work inside, that's happening right now. And so that has been the real gist of my work. How many people do I see the challenge and yet can't take the leap? Well, how do we fortify the courage to face what's preposterous? Why are we not making those changes? What are the ways that it's systemic? Why is it that the people who are suffering the worst are willing to stand up the most? And the rest of us want to analyze about it. This is like the gist of my work. And so I got right in on the ground and thought, okay, I'm going to work in addiction and trauma and body image issues and mental health issues. And I'm going to work in the environment and in leadership and, with all these innovations. And I'm going to start telling people how this work is all the same. And at the core, the work we're doing is about the return to an ecosystem of caring, right? Is to find our right place in this larger system and to do our part. And what does it take to do that again? Like the reinvention of the village and the understanding of systems and like humility to right size ourselves, because humans are not the top dog, right? It's because of the entirety of the whole that we have this beautiful, phenomenal experience called life. So that's what my work has been about for the last 20 years.
Yay!
Incredible.
Rah!
Clare, your boots on the ground.
Oh, well, it's Shannon with leaves on. It is.
Yes.
It is. It's all that. Only you're braver than me because you're also bringing in the world of trauma and addiction and everything else that sits underneath that. I'm in it, but I'm not speaking of it in those ways. I was thinking, tree scissors is trees, apparently, but actually we stand in the gap, the huge gap that is the broken relationship with our mother, broken relationship with Gaia, broken relationship with ourselves, broken relationship with each other. You know, that place where the lie of dominance and superiority has crushed our hearts, and the pain has been so difficult, we've dissociated and just started becoming yes men and yes women, where we just swallowed the absolute lies and frankly the insanity of our economy, which is a death economy. And that is a vast trauma onto which we just pour more and more and more and more trauma and behave more and more wackadoodle. And then we think, oh, technology will save us, even though that the minerals that are needed for our so-called smart technology are underneath the last remaining intact forests in our world, which happen to be our lungs and our heart and our nervous system and the global brain and the global liver. But we can do without all those organs because blah, there are men in big chairs with bad hair all over the world deciding that all that matters is short-term cash. And when we've screwed the planet, we can just go off to Mars. And I'm just screaming in the same way that Shannon is, and saying, come on, women, we've all been treated like crap. We've all got massive insecurities. We've all got God knows how much to actually work our way through, but it's all a lie. Everything that has been put on top of us is a lie. I was thinking yesterday that a woman is like a palace. She's like an enormous palace with all these different wings. This wing of the palace that goes off that way into her sensuality, and here's her creativity, and here's her intelligence, and there's her intuition and instinct, and here's her leadership, and blah, blah, blah. And over the eons, we've been like, this bit of you is dangerous, shut that off. This bit of you is dangerous, shut that off. This bit of you will cause this, shut that off. You're too much over here. You're not enough over there. You're too sensual. You're too beautiful. You just get back in the kitchen or whatever. And I'm like, wow. We're these immense beings filled with the cosmos, and we're living in like the front porch. Like so many of us are living in this like tiny little right by the front door. Hi, am I enough? Close the door again. You know, when actually all the limitations and all the traumas and all the everything that we've been told that we've internalized and believed and minimized ourselves because of, it's like this matrix of suppression that sits over the whole palace, and the entire lot is a lie. And I feel like with the acceleration of the energies on our planet, we no longer need to go wing by wing trying to figure out, oh, how do I reach my intuition, and how do I unlock my sexuality, and how do I believe in myself, and how do I like blah, all of this stuff. We are these immense beings. And actually, if we come together, if we really come together, and we plug into the immensity of Gaia, that is our own body, and we plug into the cosmos, which is inside our own body, and we allow for the true immensity of our nature, and we merge our consciousnesses in that place, we can start to lift out the collective lie that is the suppression that has caused women to experience what we've experienced and allowed for all of us to collude with the destruction of our mother. And at the deepest level, that's the energy that's inside of Tree Sisters, which is calling women into leadership on behalf of our world so that we can shift from an unconscious and utterly ridiculous consumer species, believing that that's what we are, that's us in our front porch just doing what we're told, to an immensely capable community of earthlings who realize that we are of this earth and that we cannot live without her, and that we're going to do what we can to actively restore her. And yes, Tree Sisters does it through trees, but we also do it through unleashing women into leadership, whatever that is, on behalf of our planet. Raw. There we are. Sorry, it was never going to be 1 minute.
No. And I just want to say more. Our final question was going to be, how do we deal with self-doubt? Well, if nobody knows the answer to that yet, then they never will. So we'll skip that one. Well,
you know what, Pat, though, I think, like, if I could just say this.
Yes, of course.
This is really simplistic. And I want to say to anybody, like to all of us here, but anyone who might be listening to this, when I say what I'm about to say, I'm saying it after having lived it, and everyone here has, is that what Claire just said, and what I said, and what Linda said, and what Rose said, and what Pat did is when you get into it and start serving something bigger than yourself. Okay. Like, it doesn't mean, like, so many people come to me and they're like, well, when I'm healed, when I have time, when I'm ready, when I'm whatever. Well, I just want to say to you, I'm 52 years old and I've been doing this work since I was 18. I'm still not ready. Like, I don't know who the hell is ready. In fact, I'm not ready for what's happening in the world around us, but dang it, I'm going to show up with everything I've got. Right. And so when we actually, it doesn't mean heal or lead. I would say lead and heal, both and, because when you step up to do the thing, if you're brave enough, it will show you your shit. And then you got to do the work, right? It's like, here we go. It's all happening. So I think in some way, the answer to self-doubt is get out there and do something for someone else. You won't have enough time to think about yourself.
I agree. What I had taken some notes earlier, about this question, and what I came down to, or what came through me, was it's not about me. It's not about any of us as individuals. It's about the collective. And if we can look at the greater good, then the courage comes in. Because if you think about doing it for yourself, you're always going to question yourself. But if you're doing it for our children and our grandchildren and the black jaguar and the trees and the bees and whatever, then you lose that sense of, oh my God, am I enough? It doesn't matter, because you're not focused on yourself. You're focused on the greater good.
I'd love to add to that, because what I have heard over so many years from so many people is it hurts too much. It's too painful. I can't deal with it. Well, what I say is it's painful for all of it. We're all in pain. We're all depressed. We're all struggling. But that doesn't mean you don't do the work. And it doesn't even mean, and again, I'm speaking from my own personal experience, it doesn't even mean that I really even, damn it, want to do it. But yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it's awful. But you know what? The pain of not doing what is calling me from my deepest heart is so much worse than the pain of moving forward. It's not, okay, I'm ready now. I'm cool. I'm strong. I'm courageous. Okay, now I can. No. You stick with it, and you have personal practices. I could not live in this world if I didn't have, I think this is the segue to where we're going. What keeps me going? My personal spiritual practice every day, connecting with nature, connecting with animals. That is my viscera. That is my who I am. And when we begin to experience it, like Shannon said, we're all talking, but when we can go out and experience a tree, experience what a bird is singing, you can't go back. And so just get out there and do it and experience. And no, it's not about you.
Yay!
It's about the greater good.
It's not about you.
Well, and one more thing I'd like to add into that is that, to build on what you said, Linda, about we're all scared. We all feel it.
We're all scared.
Action gives us hope. When you get into that action, you're no longer paralyzed. You're no longer catatonic. It spurs itself. You take that first step and you start seeing the path, and it keeps going. And you're like, where am I being led? You are being led. You are being led. You're following your path.
Yeah. Mahatma Gandhi said, remember, I think we probably all heard this. You may think that what you do is insignificant, but you must do it. It's important that you do it anyway.
I'd like to add two little bits of genius. One was what I heard in the car crash that gave me Tree Sisters, which was call everything you do an experiment, because you can't fail an experiment, you can only learn.
That's
that
great.
And it took me crashing into a tree and like flashes of light and voices in the car and everything to hear that. But it was just like that one phrase and that one, call everything you do an experiment, because you can't fail an experiment, you can only learn. That's the only reason 20 million trees are in the ground.
That's beautiful.
Because every time I've just gone, I can't do it, it's too hard. My team just go, you can't fail, you're learning, this is learning. And the other one was at I can't remember where I was, but I watched this woman do this brilliant bit of comedy. And she was just like, the way to deal with life is to turn falling down and getting back up again into a dance move. And she did this thing of like collapsing, and now I'm up, collapsing, and now I'm up. And then in the end, she literally was just like, okay, complete failure, woo, back up again. And I was like, yeah, let's just turn first of all, reframe it. No such thing as failure. Next thing,
Right.
stop taking it all so damn personally. Your soul is thoroughly enjoying every minute of this agony because it's growing and it's utilizing this agony to build up your capacity for intensity, for love, for compassion, for everything. We're not built to be small and appropriate and confined. We're built like a tree. We're built to strip completely and flower completely and fruit completely and give ourselves completely. We're not supposed to be tepid. We're supposed to be extraordinary, but you have to make friends with the excruciation of cutting through those comfort zones, which most of them aren't even yours. They're just inherited trauma, either of our own families or of the collective nightmare that women have gone through, or the lie that we're all living. You feel it as you burst through it. Well, you're supposed to. And the more you can swing into the feeling and the alchemizing of the nightmare crap that none of us want to feel, which basically just involves a bit of snot or a lot of snot, then you can swing the other way into the fullness of the expression of the brilliance that you are. But, in order to swing into your gifts and your brilliance, you have to be able to go into your shadow as well. You got to feel what's holding you back to be able to liberate yourself. Pendulums don't just swing halfway. We're the whole bit. We're the bird with two wings. We are it all. Like, embrace it all. There's no bad here. It's all luscious experience for our souls to chomp through as we grow.
You could totally be a promotion of Shakti's work. Like, that is a video that I'm like, can we capture that? The next time someone says, what do you do? I'm going to go, I do that. Whatever. Right. With cake. I do it with Claire and cake, I just want to say this one add-on. One, that systemic oppression and the kind of trauma that has happened as perpetually as a result over systemic oppression has had very real impacts on people's biology. While we are encouraging you passionately to do your growth, what we all recognize is that there's a lot of work for all of us to do about understanding cycles of stress and trauma and how to help people heal. Because while we are all wired to heal, all of our bodies in the Earth's body move toward healing and resolution, but we get stuck and habituated and like, what, to use your analogy of the porch, we might have gotten agoraphobia from standing on the porch for so long, right? And now our cells, that's all they know. We don't remember the reason we got trapped in the porch. And so it's all of our job to recognize that we're dealing now with cycles of trauma for people and ecological despair. And how do we honor that? Not wallow in it, but honor that and help people process, because we're acting like it's leaders and communities. It's their personal healing to do. And that is not true. We are processing collective trauma. Okay. So that's one thing I do really want to honor and recognize, that we all can grow, but you got to build your capacity. And eventually you get to the point where you're juiced up at the edge of your growth. And fear becomes catnip, not like something to flex in front of, right? So, and the other thing I want to say is to what Linda spoke into is, on the other extreme of thinking your act might be insignificant and therefore not doing it, everyone's obsessed with getting on Oprah. And if we could quit that too, both cycles of that extreme, I'm not going to do it because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to do it unless I'm on Oprah. How about just do it? Like, just show up and do it, because you don't know whose lives you're going to impact. Like, I call Shakti Rising an experiment, Claire. I called it that for 22 years. So I love that you're speaking into that. But if I had stopped anywhere along the way when I couldn't see really what was happening, or if this was making a difference, there are people's lives that would not actually be today. And those are families now with children and contributions. And when I think about that, it staggers me, because if I had decided that it was insignificant, that I was like making systems and forms and try to create a nonprofit that was founded in the sacred feminine and ecologically aligned, like, that's not that juicy, sexy of work sometimes. It's, kind of grueling, especially when I'm speaking up about, well, these are extractive systems and everyone else is silencing me, right? It's like, it was difficult. But if I had stopped, people's lives could have ended, and I would never have known that. I'm lucky that I know some of the repercussions of my work today. I'm lucky. That wasn't a guarantee. So I just want to say that too. Like, we're becoming the ancestors. That's not something you just get given to you. You earn elderhood. You become a good ancestor by acting like one today.
I want to speak into that a little bit more too, and that I think that each one of us, the 5 of us, the 1,000 other people that are watching this, we each have a story to tell, and our individual stories are our greatest medicine. You not telling your story, you're not saving the person that you need to save. Your story is going to help somebody else be able to say, oh, that's similar to me. I can step into that. I understand it. There's somebody else who's experienced the same trauma. That's where healing happens, when you can connect with someone else in their heart space. And by not stepping in, by not revealing your shadow self, by hiding your darkness, you're not allowing somebody else to step into the light. If I can do it, you can do it. Don't be afraid. Step into what Mother is asking of you. You're needed. We're all needed.
Linda?
We are all in this together, and don't be afraid to listen to the voice in your heart and speak out what is calling you. Don't be afraid. Go forward anyway. No matter what, do what you need to do. And thank you. And all the creatures on Mother Earth, thank you as well.
Sassy Pants?
There's nothing to save and there's nothing to fix. And maybe if we dropped this idea of rejecting what we are and embraced that concept that gets taught a lot in permaculture, in the problem is the solution. So let's accept the material that is, but not the reality. Like, there are so many more possibilities for what we can do. Let's find some new problems that are more interesting.
The Kogi, the Colombian tribe who consider themselves big brother in this world, like the spiritual receivers for this world, they call women the Black Earth, the source of all power. And when we talk to them about female empowerment, they just burst out laughing. They're just like, how on earth can you possibly ever empower a woman? She's the source of all power. So I just want to say, we have no idea who and what we really are. And the sooner we drop the lies of our inadequacy, or the lies of our too muchness, or just any of the conditioned stuff about who or what we think we are, then we get closer to the possibility of discovering our magnificence. Because our magnificence is needed now. And it's there in every single one of us, no matter how trampled any of us feel, and we all do to some degree or another. It's not the truth. So drop the lie and fall back into the river of the deepest magnificence that is in there. It's in there somewhere. Keep falling until you find it. And then let's walk forward together into the storm and have a damn fine party while we're at it. Pat?
My invitation is that each of you who hear and watch this video will be inspired to find your voice, your peace, and put on your boots and start marching.
As always, I've included links to each woman and her works on the corresponding webpage. Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring. I'll see you next time.
That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me.